All right.
So I think we can get rolling here. Morning, everybody. Thanks for Zooming in this morning. Your participation is greatly appreciated by the democracy team, who together schedule these information sessions. Today, we're going to have a two-part session. In the first half hour, we're going to hear from Cindy Black. Many of us already know Cindy. She's the executive director for Fix Democracy First. She's going to speak to us about some current democracy legislation. And towards the end of her time, we're going to have a fun little online poll that you can participate in if you wish. In the second half hour, we're going to hear from Ryan Disch-Guzman about gun safety legislation. Ryan is, I think, stepping in for Hazel Brown this morning from the Alliance for Gun Safety. So I'll let him introduce himself a little bit more when he starts in on his portion. So thank you, Cindy, for being here this morning. I'll do my best to help field questions as we spot them, or we can hold them if that's better for you. And I'll now pass the torch to you.
Great. Thanks, Wendy, and thanks for inviting me. I'm going to share my screen. We only have like a little less than half an hour, so I'm going to go through this pretty quickly so we can have time for a few questions. Many of these bills, the League also supports. Some of them they have not taken a position on, and I'll go over that as we go forward. And I'm going to be using our democracy legislative newsletter that we send out every week. So I'm going to be reviewing that. So let me go ahead and bring that up. First of all, happy President's Day. It is President's Day, if you celebrate it or not. I know I'm working, so I'm not sure if I'm going to actually be celebrating it. But we send out, just like the League does on Sundays, every Monday morning, we send out a democracy legislative newsletter. So we just focus on democracy legislation or civic education, things in that realm. So the League covers a much broader perspective, but I'm going to be focusing on democracy related bills. Just a quick update is that this Wednesday is the final day that bills can get out of so bills that have already passed their respective chamber, so House bills that have passed the House, Senate bills that have passed the Senate, now we're into the other chamber. And this week is the deadline on Wednesday, the 21st, for those bills to pass out of the opposite policy committee. So things have been fast and furious this last week. This is a short session that probably you all know, which ends in about 3 weeks. So things are moving quickly. So we had some top actions, but I'm going to focus more on the bill. So I'm going to skip over that, and I'm just going to get right into the bills. So the first one, and this is a bill, and I think there's going to be a polling question a little bit later on this, is even year elections. So this bill, House Bill 1932, allows local governments to shift their general elections to even numbered years in the effort to increase voter participation, because we've seen that in even numbered years, when there's an election, there's much bigger turnout than the odd years. And so this is an attempt to go ahead and move elections or allow jurisdictions to move in even years. I do want to mention something about this bill 1932. This is sponsored by Representative Gregerson. It originally mandated moving to even year elections if a jurisdiction got below 40% turnout and 3 consecutive cycles, but it was amended during the policy executive session in the House and the State Government and Tribal Relations. And so that got amended to make it optional. There was already an optional bill, but they kind of combined that. So this bill did pass the House. It just had a hearing in the Senate State Government and Elections Committee last week, and it is scheduled for executive session tomorrow. So we do support this bill, but the League has not taken a position on that. So I do want to make that clear. So And then, but there will be a polling question about that in a little bit. So I'm going to go through the bills and then we're going to do the polling question and open it up. Another bill that we're supporting and the league also supports is SCR 8414, which is a Senate bill. It's a resolution to create a joint select committee on civic health. So this is a bill that it would increase trying to find out what do we need to do because of the polarization and a variety of other things. Senator Hunt is pushing this forward to try to create a committee on civic health. We do support that, so does the league. It had a public hearing last week and it is scheduled for executive session tomorrow again. And again, this bill has passed the Senate. So now it's going through the House State Government and Tribal Relations Committee, and then it would go to rules thereafter. And if it makes it through all of those things, it'll go to the floor for a vote. And it's looking very likely this bill passed unanimously in the Senate. So it's looking very likely it'll pass. So but it's a good one to just get some more discussion around civic health. And then ballot curing, this is also a bill that the League as well as Fixed Democracy First supports. It's also a priority bill with the Washington Voting Justice Coalition, which the League and Fixed Democracy First are members of. This is Senate Bill 5890. It's had some amendment. So it may have, I think it has an S in front of it now, so a substitute Senate bill. But this bill is sponsored by Senator Valdez, and this would reduce ballot rejection rates through updates to ballot curing, canvassing, reporting, outreach, and make it standardized across the state. Right now, different counties have their own ballot curing systems, and this would make it standardized across the state and also require auditor's office, election offices to do more than just send a little postcard that their ballot's been rejected. They also have to make a phone call, send an email, so do multiple outreach efforts to try to get that ballot cured because the signature didn't match for some reason, or they may have forgotten to sign the envelope or things like that. So that did also pass out of the Senate with unanimous support. It is moving forward right now. It's also had an executive session last week as well as a public hearing. It also had unanimous support in the House State Government and Tribal Relations Committee, and now it's off to House Rules. Again, this bill is looking very good that it's going to pass the House as well. We're very excited. We had worked with Senator Valdez over the summer and the fall on this bill and gave feedback along with other auditors and other groups. And so we're very happy to see this bill moving forward, and it's looking very good. So ask your, and again, we're asking people to reach out. If you support these bill, reach out to your representatives and or senator. If it's already passed the House, reach out to your senator. If it's passed the Senate, reach out to your representatives. So we're asking people to get your House representatives to sign on yes for this bill. And then a few other bills that aren't as a top priority, but we're still following and supporting. This bill, Senate Bill 5843, this is about election security. So this is around concerning security breaches of election systems and to make sure that there's good support in our election security overall. This has also passed the Senate with large bipartisan support. There was only 3 nays on that one. It is scheduled for an executive session again this week. A lot of things are happening in the House State Government Committee tomorrow. A lot of bills, if you've seen their agenda, there's a ton of bills they're going to try to exec out tomorrow, including this bill right now. It had a public hearing last week in the House State Government Tribal Relations and executive session tomorrow. So we are asking people to ask your representatives to support this bill. Again, I think this has a good chance of going forward. So we're happy to see that one. This is a kind of a smaller bill, but we're paying close attention to it. The League is also supporting this bill. This is House Bill 2032. Right now, on campaign signs, they're pretty large, where you actually have to put on the bottom who were the top donors that paid for that sign. And this bill would reduce the size of the signs, the political signs, to say who paid for the that particular sign. There is some talk about trying to get it down to the exact size, to those yard signs that we normally see. Maybe not list all the top 5 donors. There's discussion about that, so there may be some amendments to that, but say at least this paid for by, and include at least that piece. It did pass again with large bipartisan support in the House, only 2 nays, 91 yays. It had a public hearing again last week in the Senate State Government and Elections Committee, and it has an executive session tomorrow in the Senate State Government and Elections Committee. So we're hoping to see this, though I'm guessing there may be some amendments in that executive session to do the paid for by. I know Cindy Madigan and I talked about that, and that's what we're expecting to see that. But we do support that bill and are asking that to move forward, which it looks like it's going to have a good chance, but it may have some amendments. The next one is House Bill 1962, and this is about improving voter registration list accuracy from people that move from different counties around the state. So right now, it's a little bit more difficult when people move from one county to the other. They have to go ahead and reapply in their new county, re-register to vote. This would make it much simpler and allow those address transfers to happen pretty easily across the state. It passed the House with unanimous support. There were no nays against that. It's now in the Senate. Again, it had a public hearing, the Senate State Government elections last week, and executive session tomorrow. We are anticipating this bill will move forward as well, and we think it's a good, solid bill to improve voter changes when someone moves from one county to another in the state. And this one here, this is a Senate Bill 5856. This is concerning voter registration challenges. This is when someone challenges a voter registration around a separate status or as a separate basis for voter eligibility. And this is just protecting election officials, because they're getting inundated with all these challenges. If you've read from in other states in particular, where someone's challenging someone's voter registration. So this will actually support that and make sure that those challenges aren't overwhelming our election and auditor offices. And so, specify, there's all the summary right here. I'm going to give it because this is a little more detailed bill. So it establishes voter registration in another state as a separate basis for voter eligibility challenge, requires voter eligibility challenges based on residents to utilize a form provided by the Secretary of State, specifies that inactive voters are not subject to voter eligibility challenge, authorizes a county auditor's designee to preside over voter eligibility challenge. So again, you can have a staff person deal with that rather than the auditor themselves, so they can designate someone to do that, and requires a county auditor to attempt to resolve the challenge prior to a hearing, and establishes a 10-day timeline for a county auditor to determine if a voter eligibility challenge is in proper form and has legal factual basis. This is really trying to also attempt to deal with some false challenges that have cost counties a lot of money. And so this is to really help kind of set the parameters around those challenges. It passed the Senate unanimously. It's anticipated that it's going to go ahead and get through the House as well. It had a public hearing, the House State Government and Tribal Relations Committee last week, and it has an executive session scheduled for Wednesday, which is the cutoff day to get it out of the policy committee. We expect that to go through. It may have an amendment or two, but I think it's pretty much going to go through as is. And then another bill that I know the league has been supporting, this is House Bill 1241. This is around harassment of election officials. It increases the penalty for harassment of an election worker to a Class C felony, and it allows election workers who are harassed to apply for their address confidentiality program. This had still bipartisan support in passing the House, 86 yeas, 11 nays. And so we are expecting that this bill will go through as well. It had a hearing in the Senate Committee on Law and Justice at the end of January, and executive action was on the January 30th. It's currently in the Senate Rules Committee, so we're waiting for the Rules Committee to put that bill forward for a floor vote. But we anticipate that bill will at least get to the Senate floor for a vote. Last time it got hung up and it didn't get out of the Senate, so we're hoping that this year it will move forward. So we're keeping an eye on that one. The other bill that we've been following, and it's looking pretty good, is the language access. So this is House Bill 2023, and it improves meaningful access to elections by increasing language assistance. So right now, under the Federal Voting Rights Act, you have to have a 5% voting age citizens in a certain language of a minority group to have the county to provide materials in that language. This would lower that, pretty much half it, to 2.5% of the voting age citizens to provide that information in their language. So this had passed in the House with bipartisan support, 84 yays, 13 nays, but we're worried about this one because it has not gotten a hearing in the Senate State Government Elections Committee, and we were hoping it would get on the schedule this week, on tomorrow's schedule, and then get exec out by Wednesday. But right now, the last time I looked at the bill, it hadn't gotten scheduled. So we're concerned this one may just get hung up in the Senate and not move forward. Things could happen. You never know. There could be a last minute change, but right now it's not on the schedule. And then finally, those are the bills still alive that we've been following. There's a few other democracy bills, but we been like just not making them a priority because of various changes. So I won't get into that. I do want to talk about some bills that we'd been supporting that aren't moving forward this session or considered dead. One is this was a big bill that the League and Fixed Democracy First, as well as our coalition, Washington for Equitable Representation, has been following. And unfortunately, it did not get out of the House Rules Committee, so it's dead for this year. And this was called the Voices Act. So this would, and Voices stands for Voting Options, Implementation, Compliance, Education, and Standards. And this was to develop standards for ranked choice voting for jurisdictions to be able, if they do adopt ranked choice voting, that everybody would have the same standards around this, and it wouldn't have each jurisdiction doing its own thing. We know Seattle has already passed this, which will be implemented in the next couple of years. And then under a recent ruling with the Washington Voting Rights Act, ranked choice voting and proportional representation, in particular single transferable vote, can be used as remedies. And so this was hoping to get some standards. On a special note, though, the bill sponsor, Representative Gregerson, is working on a budget proviso that may be considered to help create a ranked choice voting work group. So we're waiting to see if that gets through. The budget has a little bit longer time frame to get those through. So the budget can go all the way up to the end of the session before they finalize that. So we're hoping she's going to be successful. She is on the House Appropriations Committee, which is the House Fiscal Committee that works on budgeting. So we're hoping she's going to be able to get that, because that was a part of the bill. So even though we weren't able to get to the bill, we're hoping that that budget proviso gets in there to create that work group, so we can at least begin to talk about standards for ranked choice voting in the state. A bill that we're happy did not move forward, which is considered a poison pill bill. I know the league was also against this bill. This was Senate Bill 5993. And this would require jurisdictions to, obviously create a whole education program around alternative voting systems like ranked choice, which we support. The part we didn't support is that it would allow any voter to file action against the local jurisdiction in their election office if they felt they didn't get enough information about this. So this would have caused a lot of headaches for a lot of election officers to be sued if just one individual in their jurisdiction thought they did not get enough information about it. It was a Secretary of State request bill, and the Secretary of State, Steve Hobbs, is not in favor of ranked choice voting. And this was an attempt to kind of squash ranked choice voting a little bit in the state. So we saw this sort of as like a poison pill bill. And we're very happy it did not get moved forward. So, and then another bill that the League and Fixed Democracy First were taking a big lead on was House Bill 1885 to strengthen campaign finance disclosure by prohibiting campaign contributions by foreign influence corporations that had a significant amount of foreign ownership, because foreign money is already not allowed in our elections. And this is a way to make sure that foreign money doesn't come through corporations, because much of it does. Many big, especially the big Fortune 500 companies like Amazon, Boeing, Starbucks, others have significant foreign ownership. I'm not sure about Boeing. I should take that back. I have to check on Boeing. But we know Amazon, we know Uber, we know Starbucks, Bank of America. There's a lot of big corporations that do business in the state that dump a lot of money from their corporate treasuries into our elections, and we were trying to prohibit that. Seattle passed a law that prohibited that, the local league supported back in 2020, and we were trying to get this statewide. I could get into a whole lot of information about why we think this bill didn't go forward, but let's just say that business interests and moneyed interests, we think, put a big stop to this bill. So no surprise there. Another bill that the League and Fixed Democracy First has been supporting through our Free the Vote, our Washington Voting Rights Restoration Coalition, was HB 2030. And this would restore voting rights to people that are currently incarcerated in prison for a felony conviction by changing the definition of what infamous crime means in our state's RCV, which is our revised code of Washington, as only crimes punishable by death, meaning that since we don't have the death penalty no longer in the state, this would enable anybody convicted of a felony that is currently serving time to be able to vote. That bill did get a hearing, but it did not move forward. And then our bill on our democracy voucher program to go statewide, it didn't even get a hearing. Again, this is a bill that the League of Women Voters is supporting through our People Powered Elections Washington Coalition. We're hoping to get this bill rewritten in a way to hopefully get it moving forward again next year. So, and then this competing ballot measures, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. This was just allowing local governments options regarding elections for competing ballot measures. That got a hearing, and it got out of the policy committee, but it did not get out of rules. And then we had a couple of media literacy bills carried over from the previous session that unfortunately had no movement at all. They still might be able to move it, but it's unlikely at this point. This was 5626, a Senate bill, and 5102. One would expand and enhance media literacy and digital citizenship in K through 12. And then 5102 is about beefing up the library information and technology programs, because librarians are the ones that tend to teach the media literacy. So, and that's it. Let me stop sharing that. So I know I did that quickly because I didn't have much time, but I did want to make sure that I covered at least the democracy bills. I did put a link in the chat. Again, I'll put that in again for folks that maybe came in late. that you can look that up, and if there's any actions, you can look at the current status of the bill and follow any of those that you might be interested in. And I think I have 5 minutes for questions before you kick me out.
And I see that there's been a little bit of fielding of questions already in the chat. So thank you, Carol and Cindy and others. I don't see hands raised at this point.
Yeah, Carol's thing, foreign money blocked HB 85. Yeah, what do you think? Maybe, probably. Through some of their lobbyists. We know that a lot of the business interests were really against this bill, and we think that their lobbying efforts squashed it. I could tell you the whole story about that, but we just don't have time.
Okay, I see our second speakers here, but let's go ahead and
Awesome. Yeah, let's do our
launch the
poll.
poll. Yeah,
Yeah, go for
because
it,
there was
Cindy.
a question about what the opposition is to the even year elections.
Yeah,
And
that's a polling question. Yes.
and one of the
It's a polling
things,
question.
I wanted to clarify, as Cindy did so well, the league has not taken a position on this because, as you know, the league only takes positions after we've reached concurrence or developed our own position on this. And we haven't done that yet. So so we're going to do this poll because we are really interested in hearing what you all think. So
And I will mention that the coalition supporting even year elections is Washington Voting Justice Coalition and Washington for Equitable Representation. The league is a member of both of those, but again, the league has not taken a position.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to launch the poll. There's 3 questions. We'll give it a couple more minutes. Okay, we got half participating so far. Let's give it another minute. "81%." I'll end it right at 10:28. We'll give us just another minute here. Yeah, while we're waiting, I can answer Janine's question. Yes, the league has an action alert out on the forest. So if you go to our action alert website, you'll see that action on the forest, the budget provision for forests. Okay, 10:28. I'm going to end the poll and share the results. And you can move this around on your own screen too, but would you like to have most elections only in even numbered years? So 59% said yes, and 15% no, not sure, 26% need more information, 4%. What is the biggest advantage to even year elections? Higher voter turnout, more turnout for local elections, lower election costs, and all of the above. And what would be the biggest disadvantage is existing machines can't handle ballots longer than 1 page. Longer ballots could lead to voter fatigue. That was 67%, and qualified staff could not be retained, and all of the above. So that's the results of our just quick poll. It's not an official poll. We were just really wondering because we had programs on this with Andrew Villanove speaking for, and then we had Mary Hall, the county auditor, part of the WASACA, the Auditor Association, talking about some of the concerns, and And then we had Cindy today giving us an overview of that bill. Carol.
Yeah, could you just run that back again? We couldn't see. You didn't scroll up on the third one.
You have control of that on your own screen.
Oh, I do. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. I was scrolling, but you each have to scroll your own way, I think. Sorry about that. Yeah. I'll save the results. We can put them in the email that you send out, Carol. Just to say. Okay. Thank you very much, Cindy. And go ahead, Wendy.
Thank you, both Cindy's. And I think that someone has spotted Ryan. I just scrolled. Ryan, are you out there with us?
Yes, I am.
Oh, very good. Thank you. We have Ryan Disch-Guzman with us, and he's going to speak about gun safety legislation. And Ryan, I'm going to let you expand on your bio just a little bit, but thank you so much
Yeah.
for being with us today and presenting, and take it away.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here with you all. I've heard so much. I'm Ryan Disch-Guzman. I'm the community engagement director for the Alliance for Gun Responsibility. We're a gun violence prevention org that focuses on the state of Washington. So we're very local in the state of Washington and focus on local policies around gun violence prevention that affect everyone on the state level. So I'm going to present a little bit where we're at in the legislative process and what our legislative agenda is, and then take any questions you all might have. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if that's all right. Can you all see all right?
Yes.
Great. So I just wanted to first give an idea of where we're at in the legislative calendar. So we're right in the middle, right? So it's March 1st is February 13th is the House of Origin cutoff for legislation, and we're getting close to the March 1st deadline for the opposite House cutoff when one bill gets passed in either the Senate or the House, and then goes to the other side and then gets voted on there, or amendments happen, all of that. I'm sure you all are very, very aware. But I just wanted to give an idea of where we're at right now. A lot of our bills originated in the House and are now in the Senate. And so the bills in our legislative agenda are first our House bills, which is one is reporting of lost or stolen firearms. This is Rep. Barry's bill, HB 1903. What this does, and I'll provide this for you all too, so you can see those slides, and all of these have links to the bills themselves. What this essentially does is it makes sure that as soon as somebody knows that their firearm has been lost or stolen, they need to report that to the police within 24 hours. So this is very important because a lot of crimes that are committed with firearms in Washington state are due to firearms that have been lost or stolen, either from a home or a vehicle. It is a major problem in the state. And so making sure that gun owners are really responsible in terms of reporting their lost and stolen firearms is really essential to make sure that those weapons don't get into the wrong hands. Another bill that we're supporting is called the Dealer Accountability Bill. So this is Rep. Wallen, HB 2118. And in the Senate, it's Senator Peterson 6266. And so what this is this makes sure that those who are dealers of firearms, what we call FFLs, are making sure that they are accountable to doing safe practices. Not a lot of people know that they don't have a set of practices that they need to follow. ATF has certain frameworks that they're supposed to follow, but it's not really enforced. And we want to make sure that there are clear guidelines on a state level of when weapons are stolen, that they're reported. That when a store is closed, right, that firearms are safely stored, that dealers have enough cameras to make sure that there's that security there. Also making sure that dealers have the correct insurance. All of these things are not required right now, and they really need to be. So that's what that Dealer Accountability Bill does. Another one is to mandate that the Washington State Patrol destroy confiscated firearms. So this is Rep. Sin's bill, HB 20 2021 and Senator Lovick's SB 6001. And so what this does, and this is another thing that I think a lot of people just aren't aware of, is that when, everyone's really familiar with buyback programs, but a lot of people don't know that in some law enforcement departments throughout the country, they're not mandated to completely destroy the firearm. And so what this does is it says that the Washington State Patrol must fully confiscate a firearm. It goes into deep detail around how they need to completely dismantle and destroy firearms, so those firearms do not come back into the common market. We want to make sure that that firearms that have been put aside to be destroyed are actually destroyed. And then our Senate bill is the risk-based restrictions for sensitive places. So that's Senator Valdez's bill, SB 5444, and Repson's HB 1195. What this does is it makes sure that those that are gun owners cannot have those guns in public places that are sensitive, meaning like open to the public, open to children, these type of spaces. We didn't get everything we wanted in this bill, like, for instance, like it pertaining to parks. That has been taken out of the bill, so it's been kind of a stripped back bill, but something there is better than nothing, and it's something we can build on in the future. And so that leads me to kind of what we want to do looking ahead to our next legislative session next year. And that would be, one of the things we push for this year that is stuck right now that we want to push forward as much as possible going forward is one, permit to purchase. Permit to purchase is a big way of preventing suicide in Washington State. The #1 cause of death from firearm in Washington State is by suicide. Permit to purchase, in states that have permit to purchase, there's a deep reduction in suicides. Bulk weapon purchases, we want to limit it to 1 weapon per month, because a lot of bad actors out there who are buying weapons will buy them in bulk and then easily lose track of those weapons, which then can become a part of the black market, can be used in crimes. We know from tracking data on what weapons are used in crimes, many of them come from, again, those lost and stolen situations, and that becomes even more common when someone is purchasing bulk weapons, not storing them properly. Medicaid reimbursement for programs that work in hospitals and do intervention work. Right now, a lot of those really important programs cannot be reimbursed by Medicaid, and so they try to raise funds and go out of pocket to cover those costs for their patients and clients. And it's a huge burden on our providers who are working directly in community. We want to make sure that they have the resources to really intervene early when someone's experiencing trauma from gun violence and has experienced gun violence. We want to make sure that those folks have what they need. Another one is restoration of local authority. So the way it works right now in Washington State, local governments cannot put their own gun restrictions. The state has what we call preemption, which means that the state gets to determine most, if not all, of really the gun safety policy. So what this would do is the law in the government would be the law from the state government would be the floor, and anything that those that have local authority would like to do on top of that, they can. Right now they can't, and so we want to make sure that they have the ability to do that. And then the last is a really unique one. It's a really innovative idea that we want to make sure that we push to get across the line, because Washington State would be the first state to do this if we're successful in pushing this. But this is civil liability insurance, which means someone who has and owns a gun would need to also have insurance to cover that, cover anything that could happen with that gun. There's no state that's done this at a state level. There's a lot of places that have done it on a very local level, but our goal would be to be the first state that does it on a state level.
Ryan, there's a question in the chat
Oh,
asking, what does HVIP stand for again, please?
It's I was trying to remember that myself, actually. It's our policy person put that in there. It basically means I know the IP means intervention programs. It's violence intervention programs. I believe it stands for Hospital Violence Intervention Programs, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not 100% sure, so I can find out, but I'm 99% sure that's what it means.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. This is our team. So we bring a great group of volunteers out to Olympia to really push for our policy agenda. We wear orange because orange in hunting means do not shoot, and so that's why we wear orange. We're a constant presence in Olympia during this time. Actually, right now, my whole team is there in the hearing for our bills in the Senate. So that's why we wear orange. That's why what we do when we're in Olympia is come together as a big team. And the ways to get involved are one is like join our list of volunteers who give us permission to sign in as pro for our gun violence prevention legislation. So basically, you put your name on our list, and whenever we need folks to sign in as pro, we'll sign you up and make sure that you're one of those names on that list showing that you're for our legislation. Calling representatives and senators and telling them you support the current active legislation. The thing that gets things over the line, I'm sure you all are aware, is persistence. Like people who are persistent, who really believe passionately in this work, that's what moves things forward. You can follow our legislative headquarters, like as bills are moving, or attend a town hall, like let your legislator know, like in person, why gun violence prevention legislation is important. That attendance, that persistence, like I said, I think it really matters, and that's what really pushes us to push that policy forward. And then make sure you're receiving emails from our org. It's info@wildgunresponsibility.org. That's a really great way. Things are constantly happening in the gun violence prevention space. That's a really great way to keep involved. We also cover elections too and do endorsements. So that's also a great way to know who candidates we endorse, especially in an election year like this. And then sign up to volunteer. We love our volunteers. It's a great group of people who are really passionate about safe communities. And I like to think we have a lot of really fun events that we put on together. This is my contact information. If you think of something that comes out of this presentation and you want to ask me later, that's how to reach out to me. And then any questions? I know I went through this pretty quickly, but I wanted to leave a good amount of time for just any questions anybody had.
Carol, I think you looked like you had a sort of a multi-pronged question in the chat, so I'm going to let you ask it.
Okay, so where did I leave off? So the civil liability, it's just like having insurance for your car, you're liable, or homeowner's insurance, you're liable if somebody slips on that sort of thing. Same idea.
Yes, exactly. You're exactly right. That is the same idea. Mm-hmm.
And could you stop sharing? I'm talking to.
Oh, yes. You're good.
Thanks, Ryan.
Of course.
And first, and then thank you for being here with us instead of being in Olympia where you wanted to be. And I want to see that snake. Anyway, where is it?
That's right there. I have a snake
Look,
right
that it wants out. I don't know that yet, but I can anyway. Tell you more about that later. So the sign up link that you had for if to just sign in automatically, could you put that in the chat for us? I remember doing that before when I was part of Safe and Sane Skagit, and I liked that idea. It was
yes.
Okay. So, oh yeah, someone else wants that too. And then could you give us some information about the annual luncheon? Like, do you know who the speakers are? Because I've been to it several times and it's really an amazing hour that you spend with Alliance for Gun Responsibility. So I'll let you, I'm curious about who the speakers might be if you know that yet.
We just had a meeting last week to kind of narrow it down. So we're approaching the speakers this week, and then we're going to follow through with that. So we haven't solidified it yet. So it's like we have those that want to that want to speak. We're trying to narrow it down right now. The theme is growing together, so it's about our work with other orgs that are working in other states. And so I can only give a little bit of information of that, but I do think it'll be a really exciting luncheon because we're going to be talking about expanding that work, which we call our state partnership work. So I can't give too much more information than that, but I think it's going to be really exciting because we're kind of stepping into a whole new field of work and really supporting this with other partners in the country.
So where and when?
I believe it's going to be at the West End, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, Wednesday, May 8th.
Okay. Thank you. And I've been, as I said, I've been several times, and it's amazing to see. Well, I came from SAS, Safe
Oh,
and
awesome.
Skagit.
Yeah.
I'm not there anymore, but Safe and Sane Skagit. And this was a small but very active group of people. And then you get to Seattle, and it's an entire huge ballroom, and you're sitting at table 38 or 46, and they're all 8 or 10 people and they have fantastic speakers. It lasts an hour. It's an amazing luncheon and so inspiring. So maybe I'll be able to help get information out about that.
Yeah, and then we also have the Together We End Gun Violence Conference, which is in June 5th and 6th, and that's going to be at Lumen Field, and we're looking forward to that too. So that's going to be a conference like bringing together community members who are really passionate about gun violence prevention.
Wendy, I think that was all I wanted, except for that, and I missed again the HVIPS. What does that stand for, Ryan?
Hospital-based violence intervention program.
Okay, thank you. Now I understand.
Yeah. And so said, is Medicaid involved? I saw that in the chat. Is Medicaid involved due to suicide prevention? I mean, yes. So it's so this support for the hospital-based programs is like one, suicide prevention, but also prevention of future violence, because what we know about street level violence that obviously a lot of folks in Washington are really concerned about is really interpersonal violence that tends to happen to people who know one another. And what these hospital-based intervention programs do is one helps prevent suicides because it intervenes really early with someone who's experiencing trauma from gun violence. And two, it also helps to really intervene in preventing future violence. Because a lot of street level violence can happen when there's a lot of a friend has been killed of a friend, and then that person goes out and commits violence. And what programs like this do is they have someone who is trained in trauma prevention who then talks to that person, hopefully intervenes in that whole cycle of violence. That's why these programs are really, really important, but they are very expensive to fund within the hospital system. So having Medicaid reimbursement for that provider who's, a behavioral health specialist who is working with that person, Medicaid reimbursement goes a long way in helping sustain those programs. So yes, it's suicide prevention, but also just future violence prevention as well.
Wendy, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Carol. Looks like Duffy Clark had a question as well. And I think the summary of it is whether there's any effort to impose other restrictions besides fines on gun shop owners who violate business guidelines that they're supposed to operate by.
Yeah, sorry, could you repeat that? It's like a concern about like the fines that the gun dealers would have.
Yeah, I guess some fines already exist, but he's wondering if there are efforts to impose other restrictions on these gun shop owners.
Yeah, so the dealer responsibility one would be making sure that they have restrictions that other industries have. Like, for instance, recreational marijuana has a whole bunch of restrictions that are very clear and very precise. And I mean, I think the fear here is that a lot of gun dealers feel like, oh, we're going to go under because these are too many restrictions. I mean, there are more than enough dispensaries across the state. There's so many of them, and they haven't gone under for having very strict restrictions and guidelines because they are, they're selling a product that can be dangerous to some people. So they need to make sure that those restrictions happen. And so what this does is it makes sure that, this product that is dangerous is being safely secured, and that dealers are following through responsibly. So I think one of the opposition has talked a lot about how this will be, this will completely destroy gun dealers. That's just not the case. There's plenty of industries that have many restrictions within them in Washington State, and they're perfectly fine. Let's just make sure that a dangerous product is being taken care of responsibly.
And Judith, I see that you had a question about Medicaid not reimbursing. Did that actually did you get that one covered?
Yeah, he answered it. Thank you, Ryan.
Oh, yeah, no
All right, great. And Marilyn, you also had a Medicaid related question about suicide prevention.
Well, I think actually Ryan answered it
Okay,
because I was wondering about, I immediately thought, well, gee, what's Medicaid got to do with this? But it has to do with suicide prevention. And yeah. So I'm
Okay.
good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Ryan, you'll need to put some of those links into the chat for us because we couldn't get them off your screen share.
Yeah, no problem. I can do that. I can also send you the slides. Would that help, Carol?
I could do that and send that out.
That would be great. Yeah, because I think there's quite a few links in there. I don't want to overwhelm the chat with them, but how about I send those slides your way and you can share them out.
With me, there's no real guarantee it'll actually get there, but I will try. Okay.
Okay, so that's good. Thank you.
And I think I now see the snake people are talking about is
Yeah, he's right there. He's usually not out and about during the day as much. So it's kind of cool that he's out now.
Where is he?
pretty cool.
I see the cat.
Wendy.
Yeah, the cat's Ivy, and then
The cat,
Osiris is right
another
here.
tabby cat. Yeah.
Lots of animals.
The cat was watching the snake.
Yeah.
Stick around.
Other questions?
No, I can say after I stop the recording, I'll tell you about my experience with the snake I had in my classroom in preschool. Oh, now I see it in the corner.
Yeah, there he is.
Something similar, but anyway, it was kind of a funny one. I'll share that later. Okay.
Okay. Other questions or comments for Ryan?
Ryan, I do have one question.
Yeah.
Straw sales.
Yeah.
Where you hear about people selling, they're just selling it to whoever.
Yep.
And that concerns me.
Yes. Me too. So what this dealer responsibility bill would do is it would eliminate most of those situations, which is that concerns me as well, because it's not really those folks aren't really following through with the regulations the way they're set. And so what the dealer responsibility bill would do is it would include those who are doing those straw sales. Like they would need to have these same regulations, these same security provisions that anyone else does. So it really kind of, I think, takes away that kind of loophole that people have taken advantage of. So it is something that I think concerns us as well. And so that's why this dealer responsibility bill is really important for us.
And I see that Marty has his hand up. Go ahead, Marty. I think you're on mute. Marty, did you have a question? You're on mute, Marty. Don't think we're going to get Marty's question. Any other questions?
There's one from Francis, from France. Excuse me.
Let's see. Are you seeing a hand up, Carol, or am I missing something in the chat? Thank you. I can't. Oh, I see it. It's so hard to see the hand up on some backgrounds. I'm sorry. Go ahead, France.
So, Ryan, totally frivolous question. What is that metal thing beside you?
The metal thing beside me? This one?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just a prop. It's so if you see like the superhero movies, the Thor superhero movies, this is his hammer, Mjolnir, which is I'm a big comic books person. Like these are some of my comic books here. I have a lot of them. People gift them to me all the time, and so I have a whole bunch of Thor's hammers all over the place. But this is one of my biggest ones.
All right. So a weapon of another era, huh?
Yes, but it is. It's perfectly safe. It is a prop. So it's
You're
all-
into you're into cartoon violence, not real violence.
Exactly.
Other questions or comments? Well, thank you, Ryan.
Yeah,
Really
thank you
appreciate
all.
your time this morning.
It
I
was
learned a
a lot
lot.
of fun.
Yeah, thank you. We really appreciate your time.
Have a good rest of your day. Thank you for having me.
Ryan.
Thank you. And it's, let's see, just about 5 minutes early, Carol. I don't know whether you want to leave that recording going or not.
I
Well,
was
at this
gonna
point.
I was gonna talk about what we're gonna do next week,
Yay.
if that's all right.
Yes. Oh,
Yes.
please do. I had it on my notes here, but that's even better, Cindy, because I know you have a video.
Okay,
So
yes,
go
thank
for
you.
it.
Yes. So next week, we're going to have someone from the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance come talk to us about there's a bill right now in the legislature 2114 for rent stabilization, and this person may also talk about other housing related items. And when I was going to say, the league has a position on housing, and Cynthia Stewart is the issue chair. She's not going to be here next week, but she said it was okay if we took over for her and had the speaker come. The league is a member of the this coalition, and so we work closely with them. So we'll find out more about housing next week. And one thing I wanted to do is Carol suggested we do this postscript. So as we leave, people, you're welcome to stay if you want, or you can leave. But what we're going to do, today's postscript is going to be a recording of legislative review. This is something on TVW every weeknight. They do a 9 to 11 minute section on a few bills that happen on in the legislature. And this one that I'm going to be showing as we exit is about the rent stabilization bill. It was passed off of the floor and it's heading to the Senate. So I thought I would play that while we exit. But Carol, Wendy, any closing comments before that?
Stay around so you can hear my snake story, but other than that.
And I can't top that, so no.
Okay, good. Let me get to my screen where I have that. Okay. Sorry. Stop. Okay. Sorry. Thanks for the. Where is that? Oh, there it is.
On this episode of Legislative Review, a bill that places a 7% cap on annual rent increases clears the House. Plus, a House committee hears a Senate bill concerning the turnover of grocery employees. And the Senate honors Ukrainian Americans in a joint resolution. You're watching Legislative Review. Welcome to Legislative Review. With a key legislative deadline just passed, the House will now discuss bills approved by the Senate, while the Senate will consider House-approved bills. Here's what we have so far. State representatives gathered Tuesday evening for yet another contentious debate on the floor. The bill in question, House Bill 2114, which centers around rent stabilization. Sponsored by Democratic Representative Emily Alvarado, the bill proposes to cap annual rent increases at 7% and proposes other limits to security and late fees, move-in costs, and others. If enacted, it would also allow the Attorney General to enforce certain provisions under the Consumer Protection Act and, through the Department of Commerce, create a website where the AG can publish information on rent and fee increases. Supporters of the bill say it will help address housing insecurity and prevent excessive rent charged by landlords on tenants who can least afford it, such as seniors on fixed income and those who can't afford to live elsewhere. They also claim it is not rent control because landlords may still increase rent, but not excessively, and may still be able to raise the rent once their current tenants leave. Those against the bill say it will make the housing market volatile, will reduce housing supply, and would make rent more expensive in the long run. During Tuesday's House floor debate, Representative Alvarado urged support for her bill, saying excessive rent increases displacement and disproportionately affects people of color.
People are getting crushed by rising rents. Rents are going up faster than wages. Seniors see rents going up faster than Social Security. Families are making impossible choices while paying more and more to landlords. A record number of Washingtonians is spending more than half of their income on rent. Create basic fairness for renters and manufactured homeowners in Washington. Prevent excessive rent increases. Make it possible so that when people pay their rent on time each month, they know how high the rent will go and they can plan and budget.
Speaking in opposition, Republican Representative April Connors said the bill will do the opposite.
I fear it's going to drive up the cost of housing, and I fear that it's going to hurt our most marginalized people. Prices are starting to show signs of stabilization, Madam Speaker. Zillow showed that rents year over year this year were down $145. Right before I came onto the House floor today, I looked it up again. It's down to $149.
Showing his support for the bill, Democratic Representative Chipala Street disagreed.
As a landlord, I know that you can run a stable rental business with rent stabilization. My main cost is a mortgage. That's fixed. My variable expenses are much smaller than that fixed cost. My revenue comes from rent. I have the ability to raise rent as much as I want, but I don't need to raise it very much because it is so much bigger than my variable expenses to keep my business profitable. With this bill, if I was to raise rent 7% each year, my revenue would double in 10 years. That far exceeds the increase in my costs.
Republican Representative Andrew Barkis shared his concerns about the bill, saying it will tip the scales of the housing market.
I've been doing it for 30 years. I have housed thousands and thousands of people. I have seen markets when rents were high, markets when they were low. I'm afraid for what this policy is going to do to the marketplace in Washington State. Fairness and predictability. Remember, Madam Speaker, you cannot have a tenant without a housing provider. Please vote no on this, because if we don't and it moves forward, you won't have either.
The Speaker's about to open the roll call machine. The Speaker has opened the roll call machine.
The House took a floor vote.
Madam Speaker, there are 54 yeas, 43 nays, 1 excused.
Having received a constitutional majority, and gross substitute House Bill 2114 is declared passed.
Okay, so I'm going to stop recording. Should I stop recording? Yeah, okay, I guess that means I'll stop recording.